So, as I say, I want to look at Donne's devotions on emergent occasions. And as it says here, concentrates on the miserable condition of man and the inevitability of death. Same structure, begins with a meditation, followed by an expostulation and a prayer. And famous and very different than what we've looked at thus far. So begins with insultus morbi primus, and then a meditation, expostulation, a prayer, and the same thing, same pattern throughout all of the meditations here. So let me come here to the first, together with Death's Duel. But we'll just look at, I don't want to look at his life of Dr. Donne. No, Walton. Let me just come to it. Does it allow me to do this? Yes, it does. Just click on it and it goes to it. Okay, so the first alteration, the first grudging of the sickness. What we're going to see throughout the series of meditations, I'm not going to go through them all because it's too lengthy, is a man who is facing the reality of sickness, and the question is whether the sickness leads unto death. And in this period, sickness could often do so. And it's my understanding that in Calvin's Geneva, it was a requirement of anybody who was sick for more than 48 hours to call the elders, because death might be coming. We don't have last rites. It's not like the Catholic last rites, but it's nonetheless, death is a part of human experience. The pastors, the elders ought to be present for the soul's preparation, etc. And sickness could lead to death at any point. Donne reflects on this again in the Holy Sonnets, which we'll come to next time. But these meditations are themselves worthy of study, and I want to at least dip our toes into it a little bit, and you can go back to it and do more with it. But we'll look at the first alteration, and then we'll go to some of the more famous ones after as well. But here's the meditation. Variable and therefore miserable condition of man, because it's variable. Right? We just had that in a valediction forbidding mourning. This minute I was well and am ill this minute. I am surprised with a sudden change and alteration to worse, and can impute it to no cause, nor call it by any name. We study health, and we deliberate upon our meats and drink and air and exercises, and we hew and we polish every stone that goes to that building. And so our health is a long and regular work. But in a minute, a cannon batters all, overthrows all, demolishes all. A sickness unprevented for all our diligence, unsuspected for all our curiosity, nay, undeserved, if we consider only disorder, summons us, seizes us, possesses us, destroys us in an instant. O miserable condition of man, which was not imprinted by God, who, as he is immortal himself, had put a coal, a beam of immortality into us, which we might have blown into a flame, but blew it out by our first sin. We beggared ourselves by hearkening after false riches, and infatuated ourselves by hearkening after false knowledge, so that now we do not only die, but die upon the rack, die by the torment of sickness. Nor that only, but are pre-afflicted, super-afflicted with these jealousies and suspicions and apprehensions of sickness, before we can call it a sickness. We are not sure we are ill. One hand asks the other by the pulse, and our eye asks our own urine how we do. O multiplied misery! We die and cannot enjoy death, because we die in this torment of sickness. We are tormented with sickness, and cannot say till the torment come. But pre-apprehensions and presages prophesy those torments which induce that death before either come. And our dissolution is conceived in these first changes, quickened in the sickness itself, and born in death, which bears date from these first changes. Is the honor which man hath by being a little world, that he hath these earthquakes in himself, sudden shakings, these lightnings, sudden flashes, these thunders, sudden noises, these eclipses, sudden offuscations and darkening of his senses, these blazing stars, sudden fiery exaltations, these rivers of blood, sudden red waters? Is he a world to himself only, therefore that he hath enough in himself not only to destroy and execute himself, but to presage that execution upon himself, to assist the sickness, to antedate the sickness, to make the sickness the more irremediable by sad apprehensions, and as if he would make a fire the more vehement by sprinkling water upon the coals, so to wrap a hot fever in cold melancholy, lest the fever alone should not destroy fast enough without this contribution, nor perfect the work, which is destruction, except we join in artificial sickness of our own melancholy to our unnatural fever. O perplexed discomposition, O riddling distemper, O miserable condition of man. Now, so that's the meditation, and then comes the expostulation, and then finally the prayer. Now, note all of this is addressing a condition of health in life. And I'm going to say as it goes on, there will be a progression of the sickness, and with that, a mindset. Now, the expostulation, which is a meta-reflection. If I were but mere dust and ashes, I might speak unto the Lord. For the Lord's hand made me of this dust. No, that works. And the Lord's hand shall recollect these ashes. The Lord's hand was the wheel upon which this vessel of clay was framed, and the Lord's hand is the urn in which these ashes shall be preserved. I am the dust and the ashes of the temple of the Holy Ghost. And what marble is so precious? But I am more than dust and ashes. I am my best part. I am my soul. And being so, the breath of God, I may breathe back these pious expostulations to my God. My God, why is not my soul as sensible as my body? Why hath not my soul these apprehensions, these presages, these changes, these antedates, these jealousies, these suspicions of a sin, as well as my body of a sickness? Why is there not always a pulse in my soul to beat at the approach of a temptation to sin? So this is, rather than worrying about sickness, he's worrying about sin, a bigger threat. Why are there not always waters in mine eyes to testify my spiritual sickness? I stand in the way of temptations. Naturally, necessarily, all men do so, for there is a snake in every path, temptations in every vocation. But I go, I run, I fly into the ways of temptation, which I might shun. Nay, I break into houses where the plague is. I press into places of temptation and tempt the devil himself and solicit and importune them who would rather be left unsolicited by me. I fall sick of sin and am bedded and bed-rid, buried and putrefied in the practice of sin. And all this while have no presage, no pulse, no sense of my sickness. O height, O depth of misery, where the first symptom of the sickness is hell, and where I never see the fever of lust, of envy, of ambition by any other light than the darkness and horror of hell itself, and where the first messenger that speaks to me doth not say, thou mayest die, no, nor thou must die, but thou art dead. And where the first notice that my soul hath of her sickness is irrecoverableness, irredeemableness. But, oh my God, Job did not charge thee foolishly in his temporal afflictions, nor may I in my spiritual. Thou hast imprinted a pulse in our soul, and we do not examine it, a voice in our conscience, but we do not hearken unto it. We talk out, we jest it out, we drink it out, we sleep it out, and when we wake, we do not say with Jacob, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. But though we might know it, we do not, we will not. But will God pretend to make a watch and leave out the spring? To make so many various wheels in the faculties of the soul and in the organs of the body, and leave out grace? that should move them? Or will God make a spring and not wind it up? Infuse his first grace and not second it with more, without which we can no more use his first grace than we have it, than we could dispose ourselves by nature to have it? But alas, that is not our case. We are all prodigal sons and not disinherited. We have received our portion and misspent it, not been denied it. We are God's tenants here, and yet here he, our landlord, pays us rents. Not yearly, not quarterly, but hourly and quarterly. Every minute he renews his mercy. But we will not understand, lest that we should be converted and he should heal us. And then finally, a little prayer there at the end. It's not so short. I'll skip the prayer. You can read it after, and you should read it after. But so what you see here then is something very much typical of an Anglican prayer book. If you look at the Book of Common Prayer, there's an occasion on which, and you will read this in the Book of Common Prayer during certain seasons, that certain readings come, certain liturgical sayings, responses, etc., and then a prayer, etc. That's what he's done here. And so that's the structure of it. I want to go to one of the more famous of his meditations here, not 16. 17. Nunc lento sonitu dicunt morieris. Now this bell tolling softly for another says to me, thou must die. You'll recognize this one when I read it to you. The church bells ring when it's, time, but also when it's called to worship, there's a ringing. But it's also a sound of, it's done at funerals, there's all sorts of things. Perchance he for whom this bell tolls may be so ill as that he knows not it tolls for him. And perchance I may think myself so much better than I am, as that they who are about me and see my state may have caused it to toll for me, and I know not that. The church is Catholic, universal, so are all her actions. All that she does belongs to all. When she baptizes a child, that action concerns me, for that child is thereby connected to that body which is my head too, and engrafted into that body whereof I am a member. And when she buries a man, that action concerns me. All mankind is of one author and is one volume. When one man dies, one chapter is not torn out of the book, but translated into a better language. And every chapter must be so translated. God employs several translators. Some pieces are translated by age, some by sickness, some by war, some by justice. But God's hand is in every translation, and his hand shall bind up all our scattered leaves again for that library where every book shall lie open to one another. As therefore the bell that rings to a sermon calls not only upon the preacher only, but upon the congregation to come, so this bell calls us all. But how much more me, who am brought so near the death door by this sickness? There was a contention as far as a suit in which both piety and dignity, religion and estimation were mingled. Which of the religious orders should ring to prayers first in the morning? And it was determined that they should ring first that rose earliest. If we understand aright the dignity of this bell that tolls for our evening prayer, we would be glad to make it ours by rising early, in that application that it might be ours as well as his, whose indeed it is. The bell doth toll for him that thinks it doth, and though it intermit again, yet for that minute that occasion wrought upon him, he is united to God. Who casts not up his eye to the sun when it rises, but who takes off his eye from a comet when that breaks out? Who bends not his ear to any bell which upon any occasion rings? But who can remove it from that bell which is passing a piece of himself out of this world? Famous passage. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Neither can we call this a begging of misery or a borrowing of misery, as though we were not miserable enough of ourselves, but must fetch in more from the next house in taking upon us the misery of our neighbors. Truly it were an excusable covetousness if we did, and for affliction is a treasure, and scarce any man hath enough of it. No man hath affliction enough that it is not matured and ripened by and made fit for God by that affliction. If a man carry treasure in bullion or in a wedge of gold and have not coined into current money, his treasure will not defray him as he travels. Tribulation is treasure in the nature of it, but it is not current money in the use of it, except we get nearer and nearer our home, heaven, by it. Another man may be sick too, and sick to death, and this affliction may lie in his bowels as gold in a mine, and be of no use to him. But this bell that tells me of his affliction digs out and applies that gold to me. If by this consideration of another's danger I take mine own into contemplation, and so secure myself by making my recourse to my God, who is our only security. So this is the splendid 17th devotion upon the occasion of that, and then the expostulation, the prayer that follows it. As I said, I run out of time on this. I want to just give you a flavor of it. I encourage you to read it. Like, it's brilliant stuff. It's the sort of wisdom that we do not hear in our day, in part because we avoid sickness and death, or rather we have a scientific age, and healthcare has managed to keep sickness away from us. We stay away from people when we're sick. When they're really sick, they go into hospitals, hospices. We don't see them. We rarely see people who are really sick or dying. Some people have never seen a person die. In Donne's day, they would have seen it all the time. Death's all around them. It's part of life. It's part of our lives as well. We just don't see it. And so we don't reflect on it. He reflects on it and reflects on the significance and the meaning of death, which adds to the meaning of life. Part of the reason people have meaningless lives is because they haven't reflected on the reality of death and what it means to them. Donne does this in a profound way and talks about affliction as well. There's very little the world will teach you about suffering, other than that you ought to avoid it. Philosophies are set up to do that. The Epicureans were not there for pleasure, but to avoid pain. That's the philosophy is to avoid pain. So it isn't just lust after pleasure, it's avoiding pain. And our whole healthcare industry is there to avoid pain. Euthanasia, death with dignity, is there because of the scenario that people have, that they're going to die in agony and so forth. So we want to die with dignity. We want to control the situation. But you control your death in a sense, although I know enough about it to know that the chemicals they give you are not great. Your last days are not, you're going to be suffocating in your own lungs and so forth, and not be able to articulate it because of another nerve blocker. Never mind. But the thing that you think that you're avoiding, which is the end of that, it has nothing to do with the life that comes after. It's just, your life is just this thing that you have that you control as if your life were your own. And yet you know it's not, because there's this metaphysical part of yourself that looks upon yourself and knows and thinks about the past and the present and the future. You're not going to control the future. Anyway, so I recommend this to you. I don't want to spend too much time in the course, although it's worth it. It's worth reading the whole thing. I just want to give you enough of it. The 17th is the most famous part, and was used by Ernest Hemingway. Yeah, and as the first line for his novel, for whom the bell tolls, and so forth. Anyway, comment, and then I'll draw us to a conclusion. Anyone else want to ask as well? Feel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just upon your point, like, because I grew up on a hobby farm and hunting my whole life.
Okay, so you saw dead animals.
Yeah. Well, and I
among
just
other
remember
things.
the first time I actually took a life from an animal. The experience was both like exhilarating in one sense,
Sure.
but also horrifying
Also.
in another sense.
Yes.
And yet there was something to kind of like a knowledge that was gained just from the precious sanctity of life, because that was in my hand. I pulled the trigger and this thing died.
Yeah.
And I think even just with like going further on your comment, like the modern concept of even like the grocery stores, like most people in their lifetime,
The things they eat,
and they will never even conceptualize that something
process
had to die in order that we could live.
Mm-hmm.
And I've encouraged people, like, not necessarily everyone should hunt maybe or be a farmer or whatnot, but to go and actually see something killed.
Farmers have a strong sense of this.
Yeah, so that you can
and connection with their own animals, which they kill.
Yeah, absolutely. And same with hunting. Like people think of, a lot of people think of it as a barbarous act, and it's like you have no idea how much we have appreciation for the life in which we're taking.
Yeah.
Because we understand what it means to take a life. And I think there's just a lot of wisdom in people actually going and seeing this done just for the sake of understanding, like, so this is where when you grab that package of meat from the counter, this is where it's coming from, so that you can live, so to speak.
So some people have solved the problem by not eating meat at all, which I don't think solves the problem at all. But it is recognizing at least that there is a sanctity to even of some sort to the life that's taken from an animal. There's something there that deserves some sense of gratitude, but also, a little bit of reverence for, and anyway. Yeah, very good. And I think so Donne's very good on this. And so I'll just read the titles here. So it goes from, I'll just read the English. So the first meditation is the first alteration, the first grudging of the sickness. The second, the patient takes his bed. The third, the physician is sent, no, the fourth rather. So first, third, fourth, the physician is sent for. I don't have them all. Fifth, the physician comes. Sixth, the physician is afraid. Seventh, the physician desires to have others join with him. Uh-oh, that's not good. The eighth, the king sends his own physician. 12th, they apply pigeons to draw the vapors from the head. Don't ask me what that's all about. 13th, the sickness declares the infection and malignity thereof by spots. So now he has perhaps tuberculosis. The 14th, the physicians observe these accidents to have fallen upon the critical days. 16th, from the bells of the church adjoining, I am daily remembered of my burial in the funerals of others. 17th, now this bell tolling softly for another says to me, thou must die. So he's heard that, and now he's applying it. 21st, God prospers their practice, and he by them calls Lazarus out of his tomb, me out of my bed. So that's the last one. And so you get the progression and the different situations related to life and death and sickness and so forth. Well worth reading. I think it should be read by everyone, by every Christian, and should be there in home studies. Be very helpful. There you go.